Season's greetings. Welcome to our show, Ghosts Are Near, where we discuss various aspects of the paranormal and paranormal exploration. I am your host, Keith Johnson, the founder of New England Anomalies Research. With me is my co-host and co-founder, Sandra Johnson.
Hello there. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. I'm going to start off by reading just a little bit of fan mail, if I may. And
we like fan mail.
we do. We really do appreciate it.
Keep it coming.
It's like reading Santa's list. Hi, Keith and Sandra. I like Ghosts Are Near. It's something unique and very informative in the paranormal world. I told the group I'm with, Cold Mountain Paranormal, about it, and they linked it to their website. I really admire your dedication to the work and your compassion for people. I used to think nobody in the paranormal world shared my faith and beliefs about the demonic role in seemingly human hauntings. They can mimic and be very deceptive. The spirits I believe to be demons seem to enjoy remembering the people and places of misery and pain, and they want to be somebody else and not condemned as they are. I'm very encouraged by you sharing your faith and stating some of your beliefs about this. Thanks once again. I hope we can see Ghosts Are Near again soon. Chris Milner, Waynesville, North Carolina. Well, thank you, Chris. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
That was very nice.
Very much appreciated. Now, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce my esteemed guest. He's been here before. He's a dear friend. Andrew Lake has written a book recently, Ghost Hunting in Southern New England. It's a fine-looking book, and I love this book. It's just so informative, and it's very, very easy reading. Very well written, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
And, well, we're very, very glad to see you here, buddy.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me back.
Great. And we have another special co-host, Dave Grist. Dave, you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is David Grist again. I'm a N.E.A.R investigator, brand new to the organization, and I'm glad you asked me to be part of it. I'm really enjoying learning a lot about the different aspects of the paranormal as you see it. Mm-hmm. I have my own group, Searchlight Paranormal, here in Warwick, Rhode Island, and just glad to be here tonight. Glad to be here.
Great.
And
fantastic.
we're glad to have you as our guest co-host, finally.
Thanks very much for asking.
And, of course, you've read the book as well.
I have read the book, cover to cover. It took me less than a week to read it.
Excellent.
It was great. Great book.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, let's get right into it then.
Oh, yes.
First of all, we'll start with the very beginning. What motivated you?
Well, this book came about, my good friend Jeff Belanger, who I do the show 30-odd Minutes.
Right.
He had gotten a phone call from the editor of the book, John Kachuba, who has already written for the series. It's Clearacy Press's Haunted American Road Trip series. And they had covered quite a few spots throughout the United States, but they hadn't done anything in New England. So they decided they wanted to concentrate on southern New England because of let's face it, southern New England's more haunted than northern New England. Mm-hmm. I know our northern states, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, will get mad at me saying that, but I seem to think that Rhode Island, Connecticut...
Well, they have isolated spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But they had decided that that's what they wanted to do for their series. They wanted to concentrate on southern New England. So the editor, John Kachuba, had called Jeff and said, hey, do you know anybody who would want to write this book, who would be able to do it? And Jeff said, oh, I know exactly who, and he called me and said, Andrew, call John and talk to him about this. And John had gone to my website, Greenville Paranormal Research, and he had read through the website and flattered me by saying he thought it was one of the best paranormal websites he had visited, and told me no need to submit anything. I could tell you're the guy for the job. If you want it, it's yours. So I had to follow their guidelines. To be honest with you, it's not my book. It's their book. Uh-huh. They wanted me to write about places that the public could go to, visit. Such as hotels, restaurants, B&Bs, museums, maybe quaint shops, no abandoned buildings or dirt roads, any place where people could get injured or arrested for investigating. So that was what I thought that will be easy. But when you start looking throughout the 3 states, it was a little bit tricky to fit that form. But I did find 36 spots throughout the 3 states that the public can visit. They can go to either have a meal, stay over, or in some cases just take a slow country ride and as they go along, stop and visit some well-known haunted locations.
That was one of the things that I liked about the book, is that all of the locations, you have the address there. All you've got to do is Google it, or
right in the back of the book there's their website
or whatever,
like a ghost hunting travel log.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
for it.
So you can call ahead and make reservations for either the restaurant or the hotel. And I can honestly say that while doing these interviews, I had to personally go to all these places. I had to take the photographs. I had to interview, get fresh stories.
Yes.
And in the back of my mind, before I visit any of these places, I said to myself, there's going to be some places, maybe, possibly, that aren't really haunted, but they would like to be in a book to draw business. But I can sincerely say that after talking to employees and management and owners of these places, that every spot in that book I do believe to be genuinely haunted. I've always know that I'm onto something when you start off an interview and the person goes, look, I never believed in this stuff until.
Right.
And when you hear that start off a conversation, that's usually a very good sign. And these people everybody at all these sites were very warm and very friendly, and all invited me in and gave me personal tours of their places. And some of the stories they told me were just absolutely, being a ghost hunter, it was a lot of fun. So I can say the research and the travel and taking the pictures and meeting everyone was an awful lot of fun. Sitting down and actually writing it, that's a little bit of a chore, as you know. You've written 2 books yourself.
Right.
But in the end, I got it done, and the editor and the publisher were very happy with it, and I'm getting very good feedback from it.
Oh, great.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I was very amused by the dedication. As many of you know, Andrew's father is the son of our weatherman from Rhode Island.
Many years, who got us through the blizzard of 78.
Art Lake, very familiar name in Rhode Island, and if you could just read
would you mind reading
Sure.
the dedication?
Yeah, I think the dedication was probably the easiest thing for me to write.
It gave me a giggle.
I've gotten a lot of reactions from it. To my mother, Alicia, who told me years ago that I should write a book about haunted places, and to my late father, Arthur, who never believed one word about ghosts. And that was the truth. My father always used to roll his eyes. I can remember we had the opportunity to take some trips to Great Britain, and of course I would do my research ahead of time and sit down and look at the road atlas where we were going. And if I found that we're going to be driving through a town that had a site with a haunted reputation, it was always, Dad, can we stop here? I want to take a picture of this church or this road. And my father would be like, okay, whatever, But on one of those trips, I had my second run-in with a ghost. Was in one of the places we stayed in.
Oh, really?
So traveling around with my dad, whether he reluctant, but I guess he was part of the ghost hunting team, since we did technically stay in a haunted location in England.
Well, it's said if you go into a house in England and it's not haunted, there's a problem there, because it's such a rich history.
Much history.
Right.
They have Roman ghosts walking around in that country. That's how old their ghosts are.
Really? Ours are only a few hundred years old.
That's right. Well, we have some Native American spirits.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes me think almost every case that we go on, somebody says, well, we've heard some history that our house was built on a Native American burial ground. I mean, I don't know. We hear that on almost every...
I know. It seems to be the cliche here in New England.
It is. It really is.
And I can say that out of all the places I've investigated, the Sam West house, which we talked about on my first appearance in your show,
yes.
We had a friend who's not a ghost hunter, but a professional archivist, and she became fascinated with that case. And took it upon herself to do the research, and found out that the house was actually literally built on a Native American burial ground, and the graves were desecrated and artifacts were removed from them, and even hunted down a small museum somewhere in New England that had some of the artifacts taken from it. So we kind of got a chuckle that, wow, actually one of the haunted locations we're investigating was built on a Native American burial ground. So that cliche sometimes isn't a cliche.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
No, I know. Sometimes it's accurate. It's just we hear it
all
much.
the time. I know.
Let's try to go through some of the chapters now and highlight some of the different haunted places for those of our audience that are not local. Although even folks who are not local are going to know what we're talking about when we say the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast.
Oh, yes.
And what is? Can you just gloss over your take on that as far as the book goes?
I mean, as I would say that anybody has heard about. Lizzie
David,
Borden.
have you been there?
I have not been there. It's
But
one
you
of the
certainly
places
are
I
very
do.
familiar with it.
Oh, I'm very familiar with it, and
Yes.
it's one of the places I do want to get to soon. Very soon.
Yes. No, it definitely is a haunted location. But as we know, the Lizzie Borden case is probably one of the most well-known unsolved murders of the Victorian era, next to Jack the Ripper.
Right.
And what a lot of people don't realize is there were more than the 2 deaths on that property
Right.
in
A
its
lot of
history.
people don't know that.
Yeah, there was quite a few deaths, including a cat that Lizzie is reported to have killed. She killed Abby's cat about 2 weeks before the crimes were committed. And the cat is one of the ghosts in the house. If you visit the house, they do have a photograph of the ghost cat in the kitchen. It was seen by a reporter from Toronto, Canada. And he had his camera handy, and he was watching this cat in the kitchen. And as he was looking at the cat, he realized the cat was losing its color and fading. And he was quick enough with his camera to snap it. And when you look at this faint translucent form, you can just make out the little ears and the nose on this little cat looking at him. It's quite remarkable. But my experiences there, I've been there with Matt Moniz of Spooky South Coast Radio quite a few times. Matt is the paranormal authority at the house. He conducts tours there. But I remember one night we were there for a private party, and Matt was basically telling the people the history of the murders and the paranormal history of the house. And while standing in the front entranceway, I could clearly hear, without any doubt, that somebody was angrily pacing back and forth upstairs. And every time I approached the staircase to go up, as soon as my foot hit the stairs, it would stop. I'd walk away from the stairs, go stand back in the doorway to listen to Matt's talk, and the angry footsteps would start up again above us. Matt can tell you one story after another in the place. I asked Leanne Wilbur, one of the owners of the establishment, part owner of it, when I was interviewing her, I said, Leanne, can you tell me, what would you say was the best story that some of your guests who have stayed over for the B&B have told you? And she says, I never get to hear the really good stories because those people leave in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And as they have a sign in the place, if you leave in the middle of the night, there's no refund. And she said, quite often when she's taken turn as night manager up in the office, she's seen many people in their pajamas running out of that house, throwing their suitcases into their car. And
shortly after it became a bed and breakfast, there's a story of one couple was staying there, and they only made it till about midnight because a shoe went flying across the room. And
objects have been known to be tossed about. Matt got a phone call about 3-4 months ago from Leanne because the only couple staying over decided that they were going to mock the idea the house was haunted, and had removed Elizabeth Montgomery's dress from the famous TV movie, and she was wearing it and walking about the house. And if anybody knows the story, there is money left on the bureau in Andrew Borden's room as a offering to calm Andrew Borden down, and because supposedly the man was a tightwad, that's what they say about him. But they ended up getting very frightened because the doors started to slam in the house, and the guy's cell phone kept going off, and and oddly enough, the number that was calling his phone was the house itself. And there was nobody there making the phone call, and she had to call Matt Moniz up at about 2 o'clock in the morning, go, Matt, what do we do? And Matt says, put the dress back on the mannequin and start apologizing.
Right. It's not a good thing to mock.
But a great museum to visit, and a terrific place to stay over if you have the courage.
Yes, exactly.
And another museum that we're all very familiar with, and that is in your book, is the Slater Mill Museum. And can you give us a little bit of your take on that?
Yeah, I found your brother Carl was on duty the day I stopped by to do interviews, and Carl did a great job taking me about and filling me in with all the stories. I mean, he gave me more stories than I had room in the book. But I've been through the mill with you guys on 2 of your tours. And I feel that, there's definitely something clinging to that old building, those 3 old buildings,
Right.
for sure. Matter of fact, when we were there for the most recent Ghosts of Christmas Past tour,
Yes.
we were in the Brown House downstairs, and we were all very, very quiet, and we all heard it. There was no doubt about it. We heard a set of little feet run right across the upstairs, and then just abruptly stop. And I found that quite interesting.
And of course, it was deserted upstairs.
Yeah, oh yes, and Carl and 2 other people went upstairs to check it out. And as soon as they got upstairs, you could definitely hear the sound of their adult feet creaking across the floor. But this was pitter-patter of little feet. As we all know, a little girl named Becca haunts that house. So I think Becca was in residence that night.
And of course, if you recall, Carl was saying, I was recording this, and Carl was saying, I've come to know Becca's voice. I know the giggle. I recognize it. And I played my tape back. You hear him make that statement, and then a male voice distinctively says, no.
Yes, it was a very impressive EVP.
Yeah.
I mean, in the quiet of the house, we all heard it off
It's
the
like,
little
joke's on
recorder.
you, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, and of course, as you know, being connected to the museum, I mean, it's the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution.
Right, right. And I think the spirits do get to know us there after a while.
Certainly.
Because one of our fellow tour guides, Jennifer, I happened to make reference at one time. You know Jennifer, she's here all the time. And a male voice again. I played the recording back. It says, of course. that kind of disturbed her.
Yeah. Another connection to Slater Mill that's mentioned in my book, I was doing Belcourt Castle in Newport. I was talking to Mrs. Tinney. And what I didn't realize about the Tinneys is they owned the property that the Nine Men's Misery is located on many years ago.
It all ties in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And what was fascinating is I was saying to her, I said, I was wondering about, what could have stirred up the haunting of the Nine Men, and I found reading a book on entitled H.P. Lovecraft's Rhode Island, that in the 60s, a guy doing inventory at the Rhode Island Historic Society found a box marked Nine Men's Misery, and when he opened it, there were 9 human skulls staring up at him in the box. The archaeological dig in the 20s, apparently they didn't put everything back in the ground when they were done, and these skulls ended up. So I'm thinking, well, that could have caused some of the unrest up there. But I was saying to Mrs. Tinney, I said, I noticed that if you're standing at the memorial, you could throw a tennis ball and hit the ruins of a mill there. And she said, yeah, you know who built that mill? And I said, no, Wilkinson.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of his mills.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating is I've heard stories that people see a little girl near the location of where that mill is. And as you know, it was quite common to have children working in those mills.
Yes, exactly.
The Rhode Island Paranormal Research Group caught an EVP up there of a little girl saying, help me. Very clear voice of it.
Wow.
But what I found interesting also about that location is I'd heard people hear the sound of horses whinnying and galloping about. And I thought, well, what would that have to do with the King Philip's War? Because there were very few mounted soldiers on either side, both the Native American and the colonial forces. And I couldn't understand why there would be ghostly horses up there. I mean, as we know, the library grounds where the monastery is, that's very haunted, and there's the activity around the Nine Men's Misery Monument. But what would the horses have to do with it? Mrs. Tinney said, because my late mother-in-law used to rescue horses and bring them to that farm, and they used to live out the end of their life up there, and there is... secretly up there is a horses cemetery. There are horses who lived out the rest of their life in this wonderful field to run wild and have fun, and they were buried up there. So I believe people are still hearing the happy ghosts of these horses that the Tinneys rescued.
They would be very
still
happy
galloping
too,
about the property, which I found absolutely fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That is.
How about one of the lesser-known hauntings, especially for folks who are not from the Rhode Island area? Hopkins Mills Cemetery in Foster, Rhode Island.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, the whole town of Hopkins Mills. Matter of fact, I was just there with the folks from Haunted Rhode Island. I was taking them around and giving them my take on my research in the area, because I love Hopkins Mills. It's untouched. It's still very pristine. But you have Tucker Hollow Road, which has the famous ghost lot. Aunt Lonnie, the witch, who said, after I die, nobody's to live in my house, and you're to tear the building down and not leave any boards nailed together. And they didn't tear the house down after she passed, and they said anybody who tried to visit the house was attacked by Aunt Lonnie's ghost. And The men of Hopkins Mills eventually tore the house down, but the story goes that two wise Alec guys left two boards still nailed together and threw them behind on the ground, and that's possibly why people are still seeing Aunt Lonnie especially at cemetery number 27 on Tucker Hollow Road. People report seeing a very strange old woman sitting on the wall, and she'll be gone as soon as they do a double take. And it is the Hopkins Tucker Cemetery, and it makes me wonder if one of those smart Alex is buried in there, and she's on that wall with, has a bone to pick with them. I was talking about the Hopkins Mill Cemetery. I was talking to a lady that you know from your teen years, Pat Morgan.
Oh, yes.
And a great lady, full of fantastic storyteller herself. And she was telling me that she's talked to people who have seen dark, shadowy figures on the outskirts of that cemetery, walking around it as if they can't get into the cemetery. And she says that I should go and look about in the woods in the backside of the cemetery, because she remembers years ago seeing very simple tombstones, unmarked tombstones.
Yes.
And she wonders if they may be some of the suicides of Foster, because I found suicides in the death records, and one in Hopkins Mills. A woman committed suicide by drowning. And she wonders if maybe because it was a suicide and you couldn't be buried in consecrated ground, if these shadowy figures that people report seeing are these people wanting to get in but can't. And of course, just a few seconds down the road, you have the bridge on Ramtail Road, which the Ponagansett used to back up from the Ramtail Dam. And that pool was referred to as the Ramtail Swimming Hole. And your story about going off on the rope swing and sticking in the muck, absolutely, had the hair stand to the back of my neck, because the psychic I work with, Pam Padalano, who knew nothing about this location, when I took her there, she was saying, "Oh, people have drowned here. This used to be wider and this used to be deeper. People have drowned here." And I said, "Well, how did they drown?" She's going, "Muck, awful muck. You get caught in it." And I'm listening to her like, this is, and the more people I interviewed, and you one of them, I found out that, when we were kids and used to go down there, the adults said, "Don't you go down there alone. You look out for that sucking muck, because you get caught in it."
Well, because you're a teenager, you think you're just going to dive in and push right back up, and that's not, you're caught there,
No. But, the pool is a mere shadow of its former self. But I have found 3 groups of people who have all said that they have encountered the ghost of who I believe to be Betsy Grayson, one of the drowning victims down there, accidental. December 20th, 1860. She lived in the old Ramtail hamlet. Fishermen see her in her pail down there all the time. But it seems to be in the summer, just before sunset, is when she will rise up out of the pool. And 3 groups of people who did not know one another, who also didn't want me quoting their name, because they were a little bit embarrassed by it, told me quite honestly that they've seen this white, milky, smoky form rise up out of that pool, and it scared the dickens out of them.
Very little known about Hopkins Mills Cemetery. There also happens to be a saint buried there.
You told me that story, and I located the grave after you told me about that.
No, I don't mean she was canonized, but,
but
I knew her personally, and she was a very devout Christian woman, beautiful, beautiful singing voice, Beth Broadfield. And I'll tell you, if there's any negativity there, I think she nullifies it. She would repel it,
Yes, I've become friendly with quite a few people, and with the Hopkins family too, and I've been told stories about quite a few of the Hopkins family, and how they've kept some of the stories of Ramtail and Hopkins Mills alive. But I had to put it in my book. It wasn't a business, it wasn't a hotel, but I told my editor it's a beautiful place to go take a ride all seasons. I think people would enjoy the history of it, and you can't throw a rock without hitting a ghost in that town.
It's true. Good old Foster, Rhode Island.
As well as Moosup Valley, which I mentioned in the book.
Yes,
the Grange
that's very
Ghost.
interesting too.
It's funny you talk about the Hopkins Mills area. Back in the early 80s, I actually lived at the bottom of Dolly Cole Hill, and I had no idea at the time that any of these stories existed. And I'm kicking myself
while
these
you were
days.
living there,
I could have been out there every single night, and I used to cross that little bridge every day coming home from work, and it was...
apparently, one of the other ghosts that I was talking to a gentleman, he said, "You ever heard of that Ramtail Road out in Foster?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I have." He says, "My daughter was, a few years back, was taking a shortcut, came off Route 6, turned onto Ramtail Road to go down to Central Pike, and as she was approaching the bridge, there was a strange middle-aged man standing on the bridge, and because it's a narrow bridge, she slowed down. She didn't want to catch him with her side view mirror, and as she slowly approached him, she realized there was something not right about this guy, and he just disappeared right in front of her. She said, "Dad, I'll never take that shortcut again.
First time I staked that place out was actually 1975 with Pat Morgan's husband, Ed.
Oh, yeah. Just
Well, we're almost running out of time, and I know you brought some footage. You brought some clips. So I'd like to show
I
that.
think the one that your viewers would love is out of Wareham, Massachusetts. Of course, I did the Fearing Tavern, mention that in my book. But we actually got to go to a private residence that was built by the Fearing family, and I caught something rather interesting. And if they want to bring that up right now.
And you can talk us through it.
Sure,
when you bring it up. If you could bring that up now.
We were just doing a simple walkthrough in the house. And I took this photograph up the stairs. Oh, man, having a hiccup, apparently.
Okay.
Technical problems,
Where
folks.
are we?
Well, you know when you try to show these haunted things. There you go.
There we go. I was taking a shot of an infrared, UV to infrared, and I know for a fact nobody was in this picture. And if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, it's going to come to a crop. I caught this person with no color. It's a profile of somebody walking by the door. Now, the next photograph is a crop that was turned into a negative by Carlson Wood of Phantom PI. And I think you can quite clearly see it is a human form walking by the door. The next picture that'll come up, I guess it didn't get shown. But if you take pictures, there we go. You can see, when you take a picture of a normal human being, this is in the same house, you can see they have flesh tone. There's color to them. The UV to infrared spectrum does not, wash out color. And I know for a fact nobody was in that kitchen doorway when I took the picture. Matt Moniz confirms that. And not only that, but the other people in the house, you cannot fit them into that profile. So talking to Carlson Wood, he said, I've heard for years there's a strange old woman haunting that house. So I think I lucked out and caught myself a ghost.
Yeah. We have zero luck with footage and photographs, so that was an excellent catch.
I seem to think it's the accidental stuff that you catch.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so in our last minute, you have any sequels planned?
I've been talking to Clarice about an idea. I've been told to keep quiet about it because it's such a good idea. I don't want anybody to steal it. But it will be another road trip idea. And I think I'm going to do a documentary hand in hand with it.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Excellent. You know, and we'll have to have you back again because I want to finish talking about this book, too.
Oh, I'd love to come back anytime.
Do you have one last question, Zena?
Yeah. What can you tell us about your take on the Chestnut Hill Cemetery in Exeter?
As I mentioned in the book, my friend Pam Padalano had a friend of hers come to her one day about a year ago and said, hey, Pam, you know that place where they said there's a vampire buried out in Exeter? She said, yes. She said, well, we went to dinner out in Exeter and we were going by and just on a lark, thought we'd stop by and see if we could find, where this vampire supposedly was buried. They walked in the cemetery and saw these strange blue lights resting on the ground, and they thought they were solar-powered lights, those lights they have in cemeteries.
Right.
He said only they took up off the ground and started dancing around us and then disappeared and then reappeared on the other side of the cemetery. And they took photographs of these lights, and I have them on my website, Greenville Paranormal Research.
And human remains have just been found in Exeter.
Really?
Just saw that on the news this morning.
I did not hear that.
I saw that as well.
Ooh, spooky.
There's always something there.
Yeah.
Well, the book, Ghost Hunting, Southern New England. I heartily encourage anybody who has any interest in the paranormal, from the novice to the seasoned ghost hunter, please pick this up. It'll be well worth your time. And it's a fascinating read, very easy read. Andrew, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Please come back again soon.
Definitely.
Dave, thank you so much for
You're welcome, sir. My pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you. Well, again, thank you, studio audience. I hope everyone has a very safe and healthful holiday season, and all you in the viewing audience, and be safe. God bless.
Good night.
Shall we sing Christmas carols?
Let's have our audience come up here.
Yes. Anybody wants to come down? Come on. Anybody wants to come down?